The Accidental Entrepreneur is brought to you with the help of our sponsor, AWeber, the world's leading small business email marketing and automation service provider. Since 1998, AWeber has helped more than 1 million small businesses and entrepreneurs through its suite of web-based email marketing, automation tools, and education. AWeber, the best option when it comes to marketing your business. The podcast is also brought to you by the Alternative Board. Since 1989, the Alternative Board, or TAB, has been one of the leading peer advisory and business coaching organizations for independent business owners and CEOs across the world. By facilitating peer advisory boards, private one-on-one coaching, and strategic planning services, TAB helps business owners improve their businesses in ways that change their lives. And be sure to connect with our affiliate sponsor, GSM Growth Agency. They're boosting e-commerce businesses to 6 and 7 figures in revenue and cover everything from ads and social media influencers to making your website better. GSM Growth Agency focuses on taking businesses from startup success to bigger success, going above and beyond to make sure growth sticks around. They're all about cool ideas, lasting partnerships, and making your mark in the e-commerce world. And be sure to support the podcast by ordering some logo merchandise from our online store. Listen to all of our sponsors' commercials later in this episode and follow their links in the show notes to learn more about their products and services. All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Beinhacker, and I always say this every week, but we have another great guest, and John and I are going to talk in a minute. We're going to do a little bit about lead generation and what you can do for your business. We're also going to hear John's story. So if you are listening on your favorite podcast directory, whenever you can, leave us a 5-star review. If you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like us, and keep following us so we can keep bringing you great content. All right, let's get on with today's show.
Most people have no idea who's coming to their website.
Right.
Now, so then we started to develop some technology that actually enable people to understand who is coming to their website, which businesses do they represent, who are they, what types of businesses, what is their contact information, and then furthermore,
we're still with Penguin AI now, right? We're not with okay.
Yeah.
The information provided in these episodes is for entertainment purposes only. It is not a guarantee of success or to be construed as advice of any kind. You should always seek advice from local licensed professionals before making any decisions.
The dictionary defines an entrepreneur as a person who organizes and manages any enterprise, especially a business, usually with considerable initiative and risk. People often start a business without much choice, perhaps due to a job loss or just being dissatisfied at work, and they come up with an idea they just know can be successful. They become entrepreneurs by accident. That is to say, their success or failure happens by accident, not with intention. My name is Mitch Beinhacker. I'm a corporate attorney and a business advisor. You're listening to The Accidental Entrepreneur, my podcast about how to achieve success on purpose, not by accident. Join me along with our monthly guests, where we share our knowledge and help you get a hold of your business. And now on to today's episode.
Terrific. Hi, I'm Johnny Loretto. I'm the founder and CEO of Knock2. Knock2 is a software company that helps businesses identify their website visitors and automatically re-engage with them in a personalized and contextual manner.
All right, John. So thanks for coming on the show. Where are you located now? Where are you sitting?
Hey, Mitch, thanks for having me. I'm in New York City. I'm in Brooklyn and Greenpoint right now.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Okay, so I appreciate you coming on, and I know we got a lot to talk about, but let's talk. I know you've been involved in a lot of companies, some as a founder. You even have some things to say about Y Combinator, so maybe we can go back to, maybe not as far back as the Lawrenceville School, the early days in Jersey, but we can go back to, I don't even know what you majored in when you were at Villanova. Whether that was business or not. So
yeah, sure. That's a great question. So did my undergrad at Villanova, so spent plenty of time on I-95 and on the Garden State Parkway, going back and forth.
Yeah.
I studied finance, but I think just similar to what you just said. I didn't really know what I was getting into myself either way, but I
Right.
figured it would be a nice little practical degree that I could graduate and put it to use in some
Yeah.
way.
Some way.
I think, like most people, didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do post graduation,
Right.
but applied to pretty much every bank, financial institution you have it that I could find,
Okay.
and was fortunate enough that somebody from JP Morgan happened to grow up near Lawrenceville and recognize the name, and that Jersey connection was able to
Yeah.
get me in the room for the interview, and that's where I started my career.
Nice, nice, nice. Yeah, I think when I was at Cornell, I majored in economics and finance. I had no idea what that was going to. I didn't want to get my MBA. I was more of an entrepreneur. I didn't want to do that. That's how I ended up going to law school. But, my economics professors were like, this doesn't really apply to the real world. This is all theoretical. It's like, well, why are we learning it? Type of stuff. So I think you just kind of learn your way through it, right? I mean, when you get out in the real world and start seeing what's really going on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
what
exactly.
was so JP Morgan? You were like a trader, or you were you were in sales? What were you doing there?
So
Analyst?
I did a couple different things, but I started as an analyst
Okay.
and spent quite a bit of time actually in the old Bear Stearns group, churning
Oh.
through old paperwork of all sorts of funky clients. I think the Trumps were clients. I think people like Ivan Boesky, who got probably
There you
disbarred
go.
for insider trading, were
Yeah,
clients. All sorts of characters.
exactly.
But that was a fun place to start my career and learn the ropes from a lot of veteran folks that had been in the industry for a long time. But hey, it's great to just get kind of practical
Yeah.
skill set, be in a real professional corporate environment, put the suit and tie on every day, show up at 7 a.m. and don't clock out till probably 6 or 7. But
Yeah,
good
analysts
place
they work you to death.
Yeah,
You either
yep.
leave or you move up or whatever.
Start their work ethic. But and it was just great to pay the bills, pay for the bar tabs and whatnot first few years out of school.
Yeah. So then where'd you go from there? Like what made you leave JP?
Yeah, so I'll tell you what, this was probably around between 2016 and 2018.
Okay. Okay.
At the time, I was spending more time reading the technology section than the business section of the journal. And this was at the time when machine learning was starting to become a thing.
Right.
And when this concept of sort of personalization for each individual was becoming a thing. So think like Spotify, think Netflix, this idea of all of a sudden of each person could have a unique experience when it came to kind of consumer technology they used.
Right.
And, it wasn't called necessarily AI, or it wasn't called large language models or anything like that at the time. It was like neural nets and machine learning.
Right.
But to me, that felt like this was going to be the future, and not just for consumer applications, but in B2B. And that, this is something I wanted to get involved in. So took the plunge, left the safe job, went back to school at NYU to study computer science, stayed long enough just to get my bonus from work, and then jumped right into studying something I knew absolutely nothing about.
Okay.
But needed to kind of burn the boats there to really go all in. And,
so this was a graduate? No, couldn't.
Yeah.
Well, you weren't a computer science major before, so this was
no idea what I was getting into.
Right. So
I'm not sure why they let me in. Sorry?
Was it a graduate program at NYU?
It was, yeah.
Okay.
But I felt like if I was
have a computer science undergrad
exactly.
major.
No,
Okay.
I did not. They had a small section where they let folks in who did not have a computer science undergrad.
Got it.
Where they take some folks from business and finance and whatnot as an opportunity to help them kind of to upskill and join the ranks and maybe share some of their experience in a different environment. But yeah, it was a great way to kind of go all in and really force myself to figure it out. And, particularly when the paychecks weren't continuing to roll in. But it was just enough of the right type of motivation, inspiration to get me over into the kind of tech startup world, and particularly to get into the kind of the early days of companies leveraging kind of machine learning and what is today AI.
So that was like a programming degree. I mean, you learned how to program and code.
Yeah, learning how to write C++ and all sorts of languages that people don't use anymore.
Right. Like my son's using Python and all that kind of stuff now. It's kind of different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you know any of the new stuff? Not
really. A little bit, but many of the tools we use today can write the code for us, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And it's going to be even easier, look, I could go to an AI bot, right? And I could tell it to write code for me, but I don't know what the hell I'm looking at. So I don't know if it's like if you went and wrote a contract yourself, right?
Yeah.
It would sound great to you, but you wouldn't know why paragraph should be in there or not, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, as we get more confidence, I guess in these AI GPT things or whatever, that we can start to do things. But I don't know if that really eliminates. I don't know. I don't know what these tools are going to do. That's probably like another show we can talk about. So what was your first? So you didn't work while you were in school, right? You went full time to get your
full time. I made it a semester, went looking for my summer internship. And then once again, that opportunity presented itself where I felt like I needed to go all in, found a tiny little company that had a big vision of using machine learning to personalize food ordering. And said, tell you what, this is why I went back to school. This opportunity is right in front of me. If I don't jump on this now and I stay in school for another year and a half, I'm going to regret it. And never look back. So
you didn't finish the program at NYU? No,
no, just enough to learn the fundamentals, the foundation. But I think
the
most important thing, it demonstrated to that CEO, that founder that hired me, that I was serious enough about this, that I was willing to, change careers, leave a job, go back and learn the material required.
Right.
And I think it really showed them the conviction. And it made them a believer.
So, and the true nature of entrepreneurship, where I'm giving up the academic stuff. We're doing this real time.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you remember the name of that company?
Yeah, it was called Go Parrot.
Okay, and they still around, or did they go public?
They were acquired by Square. So
the processing company.
Exactly. Yeah, they do point of sale systems, online payments, etc. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, and that was you're in the heyday right there.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happened with that company? You went there to program, or you went what'd you go there for?
Well,
you didn't have your degree. You only had 6 months into the program.
Exactly. So they just needed a hustler, really, to do everything under the sun. I think it was like 2 guys and 1 desk type deal.
Right.
My first day on the job was get on a plane and fly to Chicago to go to what was the largest. We sold software to restaurants, so to personalize their online ordering.
Yeah.
So to go to the largest restaurant trade show in the world, it's called the National Restaurant Association. They do it in Chicago every year in their giant convention center. And I got there that night, and I found my way to this Airbnb, slept on a broken pull-out cot mattress.
Nice.
And then woke up the next morning and stood next to a guy selling hot sauce for 15 hours on my feet.
Perfect.
Learning the industry of restaurants and trying to convince restaurateurs that personalized food ordering was the future.
Yeah. So John, wait, you didn't go there alone. So these guys didn't have enough money to put you in a hotel?
No, didn't have enough money for a hotel. The founder was sleeping in the bedroom. I was on the pull-out couch in the living room.
Oh, he came with you. Okay.
Yeah. But I met him there. So he was already there.
Funny.
Yeah. And gosh, at the end of that day, I was like, holy shit, what did I do? I just left a cushy, well-paying job at a bank, and now I'm sleeping on a broken cot, standing next to a guy pumping himself up with Bruce Springsteen selling hot sauce.
Yeah, did you get any samples at least of the hot sauce?
So
but
I
John,
I did. I hope he's still in business too, because he got me motivated.
Hot sauce guy?
Yeah.
Do you remember the name of the hot sauce? We can look it up after the show.
Yeah, I will have to. Have to get some thought.
You have to think about it. Okay.
Dragon hot sauce or something.
Dragon something? Okay. So here's my question. Okay. Well, actually, a couple of questions. But first of all, how did you meet these 2 guys with the company? Answer that question first.
I met them. There was a website that was called Angel List. I think it's still around, but they might have changed the name. At the time, it was a site to list job postings for startups. Okay. Eventually, they turned it into kind of a startup recruiting platform and a startup fundraising platform.
Okay.
I think it might just be called Angel now, but angellist.co. And it was a place to kind of attract people who were kind of hustling and looking for startup gigs, and where small companies could stand out. Very different than like LinkedIn, where it's much more professional, kind of
of course,
well-known companies. Right.
So you had no referral to these guys. You didn't know them from Adam, except on this web.
Not to mention they had
you really are the accidental entrepreneur.
Thick, deep Israeli accents, and had just came over to the U.S. to kind of start this company, and really didn't have any real serious track record of building businesses in the States.
Right. Except you knew a lot of tech comes out of Israel, right? They have a huge, tech industry over there. So, okay. So these the guys over, you don't know them from Adam. They're probably not even U.S. citizens. They could be wanted as far as you know.
Intense, serious guys though. They were no joke. They were out of their very intense military unit that was responsible for all of their kind of AI.
And they were older than you, right? They weren't young guys like you, right?
Yep. Yeah. They were in their kind of, I'd say, mid 40s, maybe 50s. Yeah.
Okay, so you join this company. You don't know these guys. You find them online. I hope they were at least paying you some money. They couldn't afford
a little bit of money. Not a lot of money. It was a 50% pay
faith in this story. Yeah, there's a lot of freaking good faith. Okay.
Yep.
So, but you are doing one thing, right? You're getting a ton of experience because you're really walking into the mouth of the dragon. Okay.
Absolutely.
So they were selling software, right? That managed restaurants' online menus or something?
Yep. So it was for what I would describe as their website online ordering. And so when you think back, not even that long ago, like 10 years ago, maybe the only company that had a website you could order from was like Domino's or maybe Pizza Hut.
Yeah. And there was no DoorDash or all this stuff. That
maybe, seamless web at the time existed, but you wouldn't go to your local coffee shop or pizza place's own website and order from them.
Right. They didn't have that. It was really pandemic. They really pushed all these guys over the hump.
Yeah, exactly.
Little guys.
But yeah, they had maybe a pilot customer. They didn't have much of they had a functional product and not really many customers when I joined. But that was the idea, is that, every website, just like every retail store, should have their own digital commerce, because if you're a pizza shop, people should come to your website and order from you. They shouldn't go to DoorDash and force you to pay a 30% commission to DoorDash from order from you.
Right. So, and this was like a Snap-on module, almost like Instacart, right? To your website.
Absolutely. And
you don't have to then, you guys manage the back end, basically.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So they're a startup. They got no customers. Mm-hmm. You know what the hell you're doing. You're sleeping on a couch in Chicago. I like to paint the picture here. Probably getting high on hot sauce that's floating around the air. So did something happen that trade show? You made connections and contacts and had opportunities?
Well, you get enough reps, you start to figure it out. So we did, we convinced some people that maybe they should take some meetings with us. So we did eventually figure it out. There was one moment of weakness. I will say that they do happen. At one point, the CEO gave me a stack of I want to say maybe 1,000 flyers and said, go hand these out around the convention. So I stood at the door of the convention, and as people came in, I would, to convince them to take the flyer, I'd say, welcome to the trade show, because the flyer had our booth number.
It just seemed like everybody's supposed to take one.
They just thought it was part of the gig. So
smart.
Sometimes you just got to kind of blend in a little bit.
Yeah, that's smart.
Truly hustling at the front door.
Yeah,
I think I handed out about 500 and finally just said, screw this. I'm pretty sure I went and tucked the other 500 in the trash can. I just couldn't do it anymore. But anyhow, that was probably my low point. But everything was up from there of just kind of, you got to double down and really believe in yourself. And yes, there were some doubts of, oh crap, this is a very different environment I'm putting myself in than, what I came from. And I don't know anything about this industry. I don't know anything about these customers or this job, but no better way to learn than to just kind of throw yourself into the fire.
Right. And it wasn't some, technical industry it was restaurants and food and ordering.
Yeah.
It's you could learn that. So, and these are the guys that got acquired by Square?
They did. Yep. So, great.
So what did you learn there? Did you end up in management? Did you stay in sales?
So the company, we took it from, I guess, 0 customers to a few hundred customers, and really it just great timing of this started to become a really important thing. This is still probably pre-COVID. But, when you think if you're local in New York City, there, local brands that maybe have 10, 20, 30 locations that you would know, it's like a regional brand. And this became pretty important for their business as more and more kind of commerce in general is going online. People are comfortable ordering from their phones.
Right. And you guys were kind of ahead of the wave. So there's competition coming, but
exactly.
Yeah.
And we kind of rode the wave we worked very closely with 2 companies. One was Square, as I mentioned. The other was this company called Toast, which became a very successful IPO out of Boston.
Yeah, I think I heard of them. Yeah. So did you exit that business with any exit? Did you just they sold and you went on, or did you make some
So
money? Did you get some shares?
the founders, and they sold, they continued on with the business. That was part of the deal. So the team and the engineering components and whatnot, it became like a part of the Square's kind of digital commerce piece.
Okay.
I had another opportunity where I was able to go from kind of leading a sales and a commercial team to being able to become like a GM for a business to leading more of a P&L.
Mm-hmm.
And so I followed that opportunity, which allowed me to join. I was recruited by a European company that had similar industry, but had a bit perhaps grander ambitions to maybe be the platform, to be the Square versus being the company that gets acquired. And so I had an opportunity to get recruited to go over there and kind of help them launch in the US, and then help lead their kind of commercial organization to grow into a real like platform.
So did you, when they sold to Square, did you profit from that at all? I mean, you were one of the first guys in the door living on a couch in Chicago.
I'll tell you what, so this is probably where I needed a guy like you. I think I was probably 24, 25.
Right.
I had a contract with options in them that was not very iron tight.
Yeah.
It was probably more like monopoly money. And it had some clauses in it that essentially said like the CEO, aka the board, can sort of at their discretion
just take them away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And I did, proper time there. I was there, really responsible from the first to probably the 300th or something customer. Spent, probably 18 months there, really, got the business off the ground. But I think I was young and did not spend the amount of time and due diligence as I would have normally as I would today in a contract and an equity agreement. And I think I just kind of, to your point, there wasn't a lot going on at the beginning. So I wasn't as worried because
right.
But yeah, so great learning lesson there of it's worth spending the few K it is to have a proper review of the agreement and the contract.
Right.
Because unfortunately, that was an incredible experience, and but really left with kind of nothing on the table there from that opportunity. Wasn't the case with subsequent opportunities, but this one truly, I probably didn't have the extra 6K laying around to be thoughtful about my contracts, all that stuff anyhow.
Exactly.
But anyhow, good lesson. It's always worth getting a second opinion, right, on employment agreements.
So you moved over to this bigger company in management, and then started to learn that side of the business. Yeah. So
going from commercial kind of sales leadership to being much more involved with kind of P&L responsibilities, and going from just
so it's more of a CFO type of a controller type of a role,
more just overseeing parts of the business that would reflect, sales, operations, account management, and then product strategy for market. So ownership of like particular, product direction and deliverables that would be required for certain markets or verticals.
And this was a company that did like payment processing like Square?
Yep. So they did kind of the full stack for restaurants. They did everything from in-house to their point of sale systems to their online ordering, and then all the kind of digital things that we've seen grow in the past few years. So whether you love them or hate them, things like digital kiosks. So if you go to, McDonald's, mobile apps, so if you want to pre-order your coffee, things of that nature.
Right. Dunkin' Donuts stuff.
It's about bringing that technology to everyone that wasn't like a Fortune 500 company. So how can you make this technology accessible to, regional brands, local brands, you name it, so they can take advantage of the same sort of cost savings, efficiencies, and just kind of consumer experience that, Dunkin', McDonald's, et cetera, was providing.
Right. Which we kind of take for granted now that everybody, I mean, if I go to a website now and I can't do online ordering or a mobile app, I'm like, oh, I'm not going to order from these people.
Yep.
Because it's all taken for granted. So what happened to that company?
Yeah, so that company's still cranking. They're doing well. It's that was a company that decided to do go through the route of kind of like strategic capital and large venture capital rounds. The company during the time I was there raised I think north of 150 million in capital from some of the kind of largest global investors you can think of, Tiger Global, Tencent, things of that nature.
Yeah.
And
is that Dish? Is that the one on your bio?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And their vision is to, still to this day, is to build a, truly a company that will, at some point IPO.
Mm-hmm.
It's a company, it's, doing revenue in the probably like eight digits, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
Plus, and continuing to kind of grow and expand. Really with the core of serving what they describe as kind of local, quick service restaurants with, digital technology that's going to allow them to keep up with the Shake Shacks and McDonald's, et cetera.
Sure. Absolutely. All right. So, but they're not public. They're a privately owned company that's
They're
looking to either
privately
get
owned.
acquired or whatever.
Yep. And
Got
so,
it.
yeah, and did my time there, spent a solid 4.5 years there, helping that company go through from really early stages of, I think there was maybe 30 of us to,
Yeah.
North of 300 plus.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
You learned a lot of things.
Learned a
about
ton.
management.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. And once again, through fire,
Right.
Made plenty of mistakes myself, but created an environment where there's an opportunity for me to make those mistakes and or to make those decisions because there was no one else was going to do it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, I think learning how to scale a business is something that is not just inherent. And going from 30 to 300 employees, you can't run the business the same way you did with 30 that you do with 300. Yeah. It'll fail. I mean, it'll just run in. You'll get all kinds of problems.
Yeah.
You got to kind of set it up, which I'm sure some of it you learned the hard way, right?
Plenty of mistakes through the hard way, of sure.
Yeah.
But I think it was all part of this greater. When I left finance, I'd always had this ambition of getting towards building and creating my own business. And when I was working in finance, I would carve out time to put together some sort of pitch decks and stuff with friends or working on ideas. Right. And I laugh at that now because that's probably one of the least important things to do when you're building or setting up a business is putting together a PowerPoint. But at the time I thought that's what it was. But I think each iteration has been working towards enabling and giving myself that skill set or surrounding myself by that environment that would allow me to take those next steps. And so that first startup was really learning how to go from like 0 to 1 and being in the room with, one or two other people. The second one was probably how to go from 1 to N or whatever it might be and how to kind of scale that and have broader responsibility. But yeah, without those 6 or 7 years of kind of learning on someone else's dollar and, being able to make some mistakes and them not, be inability to pay my rent or whatever it may be, exactly. Was critical for me to be in a position where I could then, feel confident to go out and build something on my own.
Yeah. That's what, and you kind of open up the black box. Now, I think the next company you went to or started, right? That was the Y Combinator. You were one of the founders.
Yep.
So it was an AI company, wasn't it?
That's right. And so, that is still, largely components of the business that I'm running today. So I teamed up with a gentleman who smart, technologist, did not have any of the perhaps entrepreneurial experience that I had over those last 6 years I just talked about.
Got it.
But certainly someone who, was ambitious and had some real good technical chops. And he had, he'd gone through Y Combinator and, brought me into that business and which gave me interesting exposure to learning what that system and that process is all about.
Right.
Y Combinator is really unique in that it creates a community of folks that really kind of similar to an alumni group of a university or a school or whatever it may be, of folks who are willing to support and help one another. And
so
I think
people that have gone through the program are still mentoring and helping. And
exactly.
It's like a whole ecosystem. Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
In the same way, if I knocked on your door and said, hey, I'm an aspiring attorney, I'm, currently an undergrad at Cornell, you'd be much more receptive, most likely to my, read my inquiry, whatever it may be. And so they provide a ton of resources and support and mentorship, et cetera, and things like that really build a community around it. So certainly I think look back very, very fondly on that to say, if I were to go out and start a new business again, being involved sometimes in these sort of incubation communities goes a long way of having that built-in support network of folks that are looking.
Right. It pushes you up the curve much quicker than if you're doing it on your own.
Yeah.
So I think it's called Penguin AI, right?
That's correct.
A lot of that is part of what your company is today. So what did Penguin AI do?
Yeah. So the problem that I describe it would be, so I don't know, you go out and you meet somebody at a coffee shop, I don't know, you meet somebody networking, whatever, you probably, I don't know, hand them your business card, right?
Maybe not anymore, but yeah, we used to.
Or I don't know, you give them some information. Most likely the first thing they do is they're going to type your business into Google, right? And they're going to land on your website.
Yeah.
And, that's just how all B2B business happens today. The website is still like the fulcrum of all transactions.
Right.
So whether you're selling software, someone wants to check out what you do, they want to book a demo, they want to, see who your customers are, or you're selling, I don't know, metal or bits or atom, whatever it may be. Yeah. The website is still critical.
It's where they start. Yeah, sure.
Even as an attorney, right? Folks they're starting there. And through kind of some research and learnings, realized that what he described as the conversion rate of a B2B website hasn't really changed dramatically, like over the last 10 or 20 years, meaning like to this day, an average B2B website only converts, meaning like captures about 1% of its traffic or less.
Not being industry specific, agnostic.
Just across the board.
Right. Okay.
But for every 100 people that come to your website, only about one person is going to submit their contact information, request you call them, request a quote, make a purchase, whatever it may be.
Yeah. It's probably lower than that, but yeah.
Yeah. And that's brutal. I mean, and yet, what do? You put your website on your business cards, you put your website underneath your, your signage, your advertisement, everything you do says, go to my website. And yet you're only,
I don't really think of it as a conversion tool. I kind of look at it as a, hey, I'm putting my, here's me. If John tells you, oh, you need an attorney, you ought to check out Mitch. They check me out. I obviously I do a lot of marketing. We'll talk about that in a bit. And I do get incoming inquiries, but I'm a lawyer, so I don't get a lot. I get them more from networking and marketing and posting and the podcast and blogging, putting out content. But I think it's just like, it is the center, but it is not in and of itself the only thing it is the only thing you might be doing, that it's not resulting in anything.
How many, I'm curious, so somebody makes a referral, how many people you think who get referred or hear your podcast, go check out your website, then they send you an email?
I don't really know how to measure that.
That was the learning of saying, oh my gosh. So what we realize is, regardless of whether or not they're submitting their information, it's maybe the reality of how many folks visit you, but then don't engage with you. And it doesn't mean that they're visiting and they're not relevant. They're visiting and they're not interested. There's a million reasons why people don't take that next step. Maybe
but 1% is just too low.
Yeah.
I mean, it's everybody's doing, and I'm sure there's some that do it really well, that keep it up there, and some that do it very poorly that don't even get to 0.1%.
Now, if for businesses that are running very specific ads, they might run an ad to a landing page that has very specific content,
funnel,
very specific person, and they might get 5 or 10% conversion rate.
Right, but that's not what we're talking about.
But we're just talking about any business, whether you are, B2B HVAC or you sell, AI software, whatever it may be, like your website, you're driving traffic to it for sales and marketing purposes or to drive interest.
Right.
And yet there's a lack of understanding of who those people are that are visiting your website, because only very few are willing to say, take my information.
It's funny. I always look at it as like, if you compare it to a brick and mortar business, right? People, I don't know, let's say you had a clothing store and people walk in, you can go up to them and say, hey, John, thanks for coming in today. Is there anything I can help you with? What are you looking for? You can't do that on your website without, you can 100%. Try, right? You can have things pop up and say, hey, John, thanks for coming to the website. What are you looking for? You might respond, you might not.
So I'm gonna speak to that exactly in just a minute. But so that was the learning was, shit, most people have no idea who's coming to their website.
Right.
Now, so then we started to develop some technology that would actually enable people to understand who is coming to their website, which businesses do they represent, who are they, what types of businesses, what is their contact information, and then furthermore,
we're still with Penguin AI now, right? We're not with
and then furthermore, what are they looking at? Are they, you offer, you practice law. I'm sure you offer all different types of business law services. There's a handful of different categories. So understanding, okay, not only, who is this person, but what are they interested in? Are they, a very basic example, are they interested in red paint versus blue paint, right?
Yeah.
And so, we got to this point where we could help people understand, here is John, he's on your website. John is, he's got a commercial construction company, and he's specifically looking at red paint for exteriors or whatever it may be.
Well, how do you know that,
example. And so that's sort of the technology that we've developed to kind of fill and create this picture of who is the person visiting and understanding what pages they're looking at. So you have this understanding. And exactly what you just said before, it's the same way as if you walked into a store and you're in a, we'll just go back to a consumer experience. You're in a retail store,
it's a good
looking at clothing, right?
Could use a paint store.
And you're looking at shirts. I wouldn't come up to you and say,
You want a pair of pants? Come over
Exactly.
here. Look at these pants.
Exactly.
You'd be like, I'm looking at the shirts. What are you talking about?
Exactly. And
Right.
so that is those two pieces were the real big unlock here of
It's the disconnect.
identity,
Sure.
and then like understanding of like interest and what's relevant. And then, combining these two pieces with the concept of the language models that have really evolved recently,
Right.
you can now essentially have personalized conversations with each individual who is relevant and interested in a way that's relevant, contextual, and specific to them.
Got it. So I guess the early, very simple stages of this was when you go to a website, and they do this at law too, right?
Yep.
PI attorneys, whatever.
Yep.
A chatbot pops up, says, "Hey, welcome to the website. What can we help you with?" And it's a very generic question.
Yep.
All right. So I'll tell you what. Let's take a quick commercial break, and then let's keep talking about this stuff, because I find I'm always dealing with the analytics, and I don't understand any of this stuff. I'm a lawyer, and I think for business owners, it's an important topic. We'll talk more about it. All right. So let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back.
Cool.
Here's a word from our sponsors. Looking to market and grow your business? Or perhaps you're just getting started and want to hit the ground running? AWeber is the best choice for online email marketing and automation of your business. From maintaining a subscriber list to drip campaigns and landing pages, AWeber gives you tools and integrations that make marketing easy and fun. As our partner and sponsor, we use all their tools to promote the podcast and market our law firm. AWeber, the best alternative for online marketing. For over 30 years, the Alternative Board, or TAB, has built a thriving community of forward-thinking CEOs and business owners who want to radically improve their companies. Through unique combinations of one-on-one business coaching, participation in monthly TAB board meetings with other non-competing owners, a suite of strategic tools, and customized strategic planning workshops, TAB membership can deliver greater strength to your business and a better work-life balance for you and your family. All packaged in a streamlined and affordable service that the people at TAB invite you to try risk-free. Are you struggling with managing advertising due to a lack of time or expertise? Perhaps you're facing challenges in scaling ads for your store. Are you feeling lost when strategies have no success? GSM Growth Agency is your reliable partner in overcoming these business challenges. Feel the impact of collaborating with a team dedicated not only to short-term goals, but also to building long-term partnerships and achieving sustained success. Embark on an exciting journey to redefine the possibilities of e-commerce and create a legacy of unparalleled excellence. Take decisive action now. Follow their link in the show notes to receive a complimentary audit of your Shopify store conducted by a GSM expert. Propel your e-commerce game to new heights with GSM Growth Agency. Follow the link in the show notes to learn more about all of our sponsors. And now back to our show. All right, John, we're back. Yeah, I think this is a good topic. So I don't get a lot of incoming traffic on the website. Like people don't, but I do get some. And then some people will send me these inquiries through the website. A lot of them are crap. And then I'll say, how did you meet me? And they might say, well, John DiLoretto referred me.
Yep.
And okay, great. And here's a link to my calendar. Let's set something up. And they have a business need.
Yep.
But a lot of times they'll cancel the appointment and say, oh, I found another attorney. Like I didn't move fast enough. And I'm always thinking like, well, what could I have done to convert that person or to weed them out quicker or whatever? So I'm interested in the whole large learning model there.
Yeah. And so, I think, okay, so what we talked about is now you know who's on your site and what they're interested in. And if I took that information and handed that spreadsheet to, I don't know, a business owner or a sales rep, a marketing team, they could potentially have hundreds or thousands of those a day. And they just would not have time to actually go through. Now, could we tease up a few of the most interesting ones, the largest potential cases, opportunities, whatever it may be? Sure. But the reality is, sometimes until you have those conversations, you won't really know. And so what's, kind of amazing about the recent evolution of some of these language models is you can now, very easily take information such as like identity and browsing history and all of that, and you can personalize and speak to each individual in a personalized manner. That's going to ultimately, have a higher chance of converting, getting a response, starting a conversation than if I just said, hey, do you want some pants? As we said before. And so that's really kind of what we're focused on as a business. I think historically, big Fortune 500 companies had access to technology that could help them understand who's on their site, and they had really complex marketing teams and funnels to help divide up every different type of use case and segment and all this stuff. But if you're, if you're a startup, if you're, even a
Yeah.
mid-sized business, bringing together this technology was really inaccessible. And so our
Right.
goal is really to help, either startups and scale up businesses kind of automate this process of identification and reach out to folks that are relevant based on what they're interested in. So that's it in a nutshell.
Okay. So then the company's now Knock 2. So what
Yep.
was the transition from Penguin to
Yeah.
Knock 2?
Well, I'll tell you what. So not every partnership is the right partnership.
You know how many partnerships I have in law that survived and worked? I don't think any.
But fortunately, this time around had, the right types of agreements and terms in place, right? And was a bit more thoughtful about my approach going into this, having been kind of, the third or fourth business that I've been involved with. And set up in a position where, when it came to the point where realized that perhaps the other business partner wasn't long for what I would describe as kind of the early stages of building a business, and
Right.
Had kind of maybe other life priorities and things that whether it's getting married or whatever, maybe things that kind of get in the way perhaps of what the time and effort most people know it takes in the early first year of a business.
A lot. Yeah, you work harder than
presented an opportunity for myself to essentially acquire the assets of the business and to recapitalize it into an entity where I could really steer the vision forward.
Got it. So you basically bought him out, took the assets, started the new company.
Exactly. And that's, sometimes that's the cleanest path forward, and it's it makes all parties kind of happy, and it's okay.
Yeah.
But
from a small business acquisition point, it's the only way to go in my opinion. I mean, we've done some stock purchases when there's something involved that it's hard to transfer, like government contracts or things like that. But yeah, generally you want the assets, you don't want the liabilities. So who knows what this guy was doing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So was it you that founded Knock 2? You have other partners now?
Correct. So, we have a team, but truly, kind of the sole owner of the business today.
Okay.
I think, I've seen it happen in all different ways. Like I said, I saw the crazy, super high venture rounds, things of that nature. And one example, I've seen people bootstrap, and I think, fortunate to see all different ways to build a business, and, very excited about kind of building this business on our own terms this go around. And I'm sure perhaps at later stages, there might be appropriate times to tap external capital, but in a way.
So there's been no venture capital, no angel investment.
Yeah, we've been fortunate where we haven't required it. Running a software company today with AI, you can do a lot more with less, I would say. I'd say the output that any given engineer can produce now versus even just 3 years ago has significantly increased, in that an engineer can now kind of prompt or ask an AI coding assistant to build a lot of the functional and fundamental code they need for any given project that we work on.
Yeah, they don't have to start with a blinking cursor on a blank screen.
Yeah, and it's funny, a lot of the work that gets done, even though it may look different on the front end, a lot of it is almost like you're copy and pasting over other.
Of course, that's how I do documents. I don't rewrite every paragraph. Exactly. I have a whole library of stuff I use. Yeah,
exactly. So similar with engineering and coding, not all that different. So not having to start from scratch each time.
So what's your business structure? Is everyone virtual? Do you have an office out in Brooklyn where people sit and work?
We've got an office in Midtown Manhattan.
Okay.
Yeah, we're fortunate actually. So once again, leaned in, love the idea of being part of communities at the early stages of building. We're part of this great program called Grand Central Tech.
Okay.
If for anyone, I guess that would be listening to
is that an incubator?
It is, yeah.
Oh,
but it's an incubator with really great terms. They don't take equity. They are a venture fund, so if they like what they see, they do like to invest and have an opportunity to do so, but there are no requirements.
Okay.
But it's a longstanding, organization that's been operating for now about 10, 15 years, right out of Midtown, and they've worked with, dozens of New York City companies that have gone on to be quite successful, and some of which I think are getting ready to almost IPO this year. So they built a track record of nurturing, building a real community locally, New York, New Jersey, whatnot. and being there as a resource to help people on those first couple
Sure.
challenges and roadblocks that they face.
And it's co-working. There's other
Exactly.
companies in the
Yeah.
space and stuff. Probably like a cool environment.
Exactly.
Where's it located? Near Grand Central?
Yeah, 22 Vanderbilt.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So yeah, right next
Right
door.
up the side there. Nice. Yeah, my son lives at. Well, he works remotely. We should talk about him. He's a programmer, but he works for a company out of Minneapolis, and he's at like 34th and Park.
Yep.
So it's like
Yeah.
down the street. Yeah, crazy. All right, so who's on your team right now? How many guys?
We've got a few engineers.
Okay.
We have a CTO, and then we have some help on our kind of go-to-market operations front. But the business today, we describe it as relatively asset light. A lot of people can get started themselves. They don't necessarily need to book a demo.
Right.
You can get started on the website, which is great.
So Knock 2 is a software as a service. It's not, you're not
Correct.
Consulting and building.
Not consulting. So
small business.
truly, people when they sign up, they add a little snippet of code to their website.
Okay.
And that snippet of code will give them full visibility on who's coming to their website, what they're looking at, et cetera. And we've got tools built into the platform that they can filter down to just, I just want to speak to businesses that are in real estate, or I just want to speak to businesses that sell software that are, have between 100 and 500 employees, whatever it may be. And with that information and context we have on their company, we can automate the retargeting and engagement of those visitors. So for example, they can proactively send an email maybe 2 hours after they visited to perhaps speak to the specific products they were looking at, offer relevant customer examples that are similar to them, and start that conversation the same way that if I submitted my information to you, you'd probably look at my profile, see, that I submitted an inquiry for business law, and then you perhaps might reach out and reference your work with other business law clients.
But this automates the process.
Fully automate it. So we like to think of it as, you might spend on any, well, one, you have to get the inquiry. So now you don't need to. We can tell you who comes even if they don't inquire. Two, we have this opportunity to save you that research period. Maybe spend 10, 15 minutes thinking, okay, what's this business? What's the use case? And then even just the handful of minutes it takes to write an email or two. And so ideally, we save the average person hopefully anywhere between 20 to 30 minutes per customer we identify that's relevant for them. So that could be, dozen hours in a given week easily.
So without getting too under the hood, because it gets into trade secrets and stuff.
Yeah, sure.
A guy, a potential customer, somebody visits your website. They haven't put their information in the system, right? They haven't asked, any kind of inquiry. They haven't, entered the mail. How do you identify them? I mean,
there's a couple ways we do it, but it starts with their IP address, which is essentially like their digital mailbox. And that information is readily available when they visit, and that is associated with their, their IP address of the session that they're browsing from. And that, with addition to some other identifying information, there's essentially, you have like your internet profile, which is similar to your mailing address. And if that internet profile has ever consented and opted in and provided your information to perhaps other companies or other publishers or networks of which we work with, when you visit, if that information is kind of on file, we're able to produce and put together
a huge database.
Yep. And so, a lot of this information can be publicly available or accessible. It's not necessarily, but it's really about kind of reining in and taming in, billions and billions of data points in a way that you can actually produce something that's relevant and interesting. Not just knowing that, you're on a Mac or a cell phone or you're based in New York City. We actually can say, this is Mitch, this is his law firm. He's based, here in New Jersey, and here's some information about his law firm in terms of maybe employee count, revenue, et cetera.
Sure. So, is any of it like just algorithms that are kind of guessing at things, or is it all based on hard data?
So, data is always changing, right? Tomorrow you could close up your shop, you could open up a new shop, and so, to the best of our ability, it is always, accurate and up-to-date data, but we're living in a constantly changing world. And so, people will always be changing jobs. You might hire a new person today, et cetera. And so, everything is a bit of an estimate, I would say. But for the most part, for an average business, the way that we help them do is really just filter down to focus on just who's relevant. So like I said, if you're just selling pants, if someone, comes and they're, looking for shirts, there's no reason for you to reach out to those. So we're going to kind of avoid all those folks and just focus on the people looking for pants.
Got it. So, and for a small, like a law firm like me, I got a virtual paralegal, I got a virtual assistant, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
How cost effective is it for someone? Because that's your marketplace, right? You're trying to reach the small business owner.
Yeah, I mean, so we've got customers that
Subscription
range from anywhere between 10 employees to probably 3,000 employees. So there's a range.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's anywhere between maybe a few $100s to maybe, if you're on the larger end, people might pay a few $1,000s. But a lot of companies start with paying like $250 a month.
Yeah.
And it's really just to give them the understanding of who's coming, who's visiting their website. And then for, a little bit more, they can automate the outreach and the retargeting.
Got it.
And, the goal is really just about saying, how can you improve that buyer journey? And so, if I came to your website, I'm probably looking around trying to find things. A website, just to your point earlier, it's not like a store. If I've got questions and I need them answered, maybe I don't want to book a 15-minute call with you next Tuesday just to get a basic question answered.
Yeah.
And maybe I didn't see companies that look like me that were on your website, and I'm not exactly sure if this fits my use case.
Right. No, I've done that with software. I'm for the practice where I'm looking at something, I'm trying to find an answer, and then it's like, book a demo. I'm like, I don't want to book a demo.
Exactly.
I just want to know the answer to this question.
Yeah. And so that's our goal, is to say, how can we lower the barrier to entry? How can we reduce the friction in a call to action? And really just, how can we help businesses tee up more relevant conversations with folks that are demonstrating some level of interest in their business by browsing their product offerings, their pages, their services, et cetera.
Yeah. But it's analytics specific to not lead generation or capturing.
Yep. So, so there's quite a bit of analytics, but it's really about converting what is folks that are visiting into real opportunities for a business. That's really the outcome we focus on. Is you've got, potentially hundreds or thousands of people visiting your website in a given month.
Right, hopefully.
How can we turn more of those folks that visit into someone that's educated about what you do, informed about whether you're really a fit, and start a real conversation that can turn into an actual customer, client, et cetera, engagement.
Okay. What about industries? Are there some industries you work more with than others, or it works better for? Or
very B2B focused. There are some, as you might know better than me, but there's some legal and privacy challenges around any type of solicitation or interaction with consumers. So this is very much so a B2B business for best practices. And then specifically, industries that we work with, it is broad, but we have lots of customers that are come from the software world just because they're very used to kind of their digital buying motion, booking demos, that type of thing. But we also have plenty of businesses that I would describe as like kind of built world businesses that might wholesale distribution. They sell real physical goods and products. And they've maybe been in business for, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, whatever it may be.
Right.
And people come to their website because they need a quote for 10,000 units of pipes or metal or steel or whatever it may be. And for them, every prospective prospect that's on seeing if they have this part, this value, whatever it may be, can be worth quite a bit of money. And so identifying those folks is very valuable.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. Yeah. So if you're in the building business and you're looking to, you go to a cabinet company because you have 100 apartments, you want to put cabinets in them.
Exactly.
You don't want to lose that guy.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. What would you say it was, and you, not just this business specifically, but what would you say one of the more challenging things were and are with running your own business?
Oh gosh, time prioritization is always it.
Okay.
I think, there's always a million things you can do, but in anything in life, you'll have limited resources, and your most, important resource is your time.
Yeah.
You'll have limited capital, whatever it may be, but you cannot change the amount of hours you have in the day.
Right.
And so I think for me, that has been the biggest shift of, the various jobs I talked about. The responsibility increased. And I always thought, I can multitask. I can do many different things. When I finally got to the point where it was really my own business, the biggest learning for me was, you know what, maybe I'm definitely not Superman, but I'm actually not as good at context switching as I thought I was.
Yeah.
And so when I was running sales teams or sales and marketing operations, I was okay to switch from sales to, okay, let's do marketing, let's do operations.
Right.
But when running a business and I now have, 20 different things, 15 different things,
You can't do everything yourself, right?
I found that switching between those different things actually was essentially destroying my productivity or my focus.
Right.
And so one of my biggest kind of assets and learnings I've kind of approached over the last few months is really the concept of time blocking, of being really regimented about allocating specific time in each given day and week to specific functions that I'm going to do to the best of my ability. So I sort of mapped out what are the different jobs to be done within my business, how much time needs to be spent on product management versus sales versus customer onboarding, whatever it may be, versus business admin, et cetera, and then map that to my schedule in a way that reduces the amount of like context switching I need to do in any given day. So I've got 4 hours blocked out on Monday morning that's just product management. That to me has been like the largest unlock, which is just realizing my like weaknesses of I can't do 18 different types of tasks in a day.
Right.
And then creating a schedule that allows me to be do deep work with specific tasks and best kind of utilize my time. So
and I assume you're building a team around those things, right? I think a lot of business owners think they should do everything themselves. And then
the sooner that you can bring in folks exactly to kind of take on and properly delegate responsibility and ownership,
right?
The better.
Yeah, because you can't scale if you don't have those things in place. Yeah. What's the future hold for the company? What's your vision of where you want to go with this whole thing?
So today, we're really focused on enabling any size business to capture more of what we describe as their top of funnel. So capture interest and convert that into real value. We think every single B2B business with a website should have this type of technology, whether it's with us or someone else. The way I frame it is kind of more almost like caller ID. Like before caller ID, like no one knew who was calling them. Now, anytime somebody calls you, you're looking at who's calling you before you pick up, right?
It used to be you have to subscribe to the service. Now you don't.
We think every website should have this concept of like caller ID. If you're a business, you should know who's expressing interest. Whether or not you act on it, it's still valuable information. We think that's important. So continuing to build out that to be more robust, continue to build that so that there's more opportunities for businesses to engage in different ways. Today, it's largely email and LinkedIn, but we'd love people to be able to send postcards or flyers or digital ads or whatever it might be. We want businesses to be able to engage in whatever channels are most efficient for them and are most receptive by their buyers, how their buyers prefer to be engaged with, talk with, et cetera. Much longer term vision, we think there's an opportunity for, as we evolve into this world of more agents and agentic workflows, there's an opportunity perhaps for, if multiple businesses have this technology, for those businesses, technology actually converse with each other and almost create digital infrastructure for commerce that goes, from if you're a construction company and you're the other company that sells timber or whatever it may be, there's no reason why those two agents and those two could not interact with each other autonomously. Right. So I think much longer term vision, but I think that's where we're going to see lots of really interesting use cases where, you'll focus on building a great product and servicing your customers, but some of these kind of buying processes where it's research and figuring out a lot of the administrative tasks that happen in a sales process, not necessarily the face-to-face meetings, we think can largely be delegated to agents.
Right. Yeah. So is the technology real time? Like if I'm using the system, does it tell me, oh, John just got on your website and he's looking for this? So it's not like you get a report at the end of the day and then you decide. Yeah. So you can be active, assuming somebody's sitting there.
Yeah, like anything, as you know, the sooner you follow up with somebody who submits their information, the higher likelihood of them to be willing or interested in working with you. And
right, of course.
If I'm looking for an attorney, I probably submit on 4 different websites. Whoever hits me first, I'm most likely.
That's very common. Yeah, exactly. And then I could say, John, I see you just visited our site. What can I help you with? And that type of stuff. Interesting. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on. You have a very interesting business background, unlike some other people. But you have, you've been around in the tech world. And the funny thing is, you never really learned programming, did you? Just maybe as you go, some stuff.
enough to show conviction, and now enough with the brilliance of sort of these AI tools now enough to be able to kind of work my way through the code and have an understanding of what we're doing. But
yeah, because you have guys coding for you, and then you understand what you're dealing with and whatever. Yeah, because you're the management guy.
But it's on my checklist for 2025 is to become back a better coder. Coding.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a lot of time for that, so that's perfect. And make it 19 things instead of 18 things. Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, I can't thank you enough for coming on. And, if I ever get out to Brooklyn, I'll definitely say hello. I go out for breweries sometimes, some of the distilleries. Are you near Red Hook? Are you
a little bit further north? We're right near the Brooklyn Brewery, which was actually founded and started by a Lawrenceville graduate, Jersey guy. Same with the Brooklyn Bowl, also a Jersey guy.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I like Red Hook. That's where Widow Jane is. So. Now, I don't know if you're drinking iced tea during this thing, or that's a bourbon. So it's a little early.
It's coffee, but it's a rocks glass.
That's funny. All right. Well, I can't thank you enough, John. Hang out for the credits, and definitely want to see the company grow and stay in touch.
Awesome. Thanks, Mitch.
Okay. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Accidental Entrepreneur. Opening and closing music written and performed by Howie Moskovich and made to order music. For information about Howie and his music services, please follow the link in our show notes. If you like the podcast, please tell others about us. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, on Amazon Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and most of the other podcast directories. If you like what you hear, please leave us a 5-star review and feel free to share our episodes on social media. If you have any questions or comments, ideas for the show, or you'd even like to appear as a guest, reach out to us by email at info@beinhackerlaw.com.
The Accidental Entrepreneur is hosted by Mitch Beinhacker and produced by Beinhacker Law. If you'd like to learn more about our business and legal services, you can find us on social media or visit our website at beinhackerlaw.com. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe to our feed to be notified of all future episodes.